So I often talk about these deeply ingrained psychological and energetic programs or habits that constitute the ego identity. And I thought it could be fun to look and reflect upon them and how they appear in the awakening process, using the movie Matrix as a symbolic representation of that experience of mind identification and the conventional habitual identity that is basically constructed from social cultural conditioning and kind of automated rigid habitual cognitive and behavioral responses and defenses, coping strategies, avoidance strategies. So in the movie Matrix, the agents represent these programs, these Vasanas, let's say. So they react and they police perception and they attempt to destroy anything that threatens the virtual reality. So anything that appears to threaten the illusion of the mind world. So Neo, the main character in the movie, so he represents this reality of the unconditioned mind awakening to itself, we could say, at least in this video that I'm now using it as a metaphor. I think it's a pretty apt like artistic representation, that movie, of the awakening process. Right, so initially he runs away from the agents, right? So he runs away from these type of like vasanas and how they activate in the dream world. You know, they appear as something of a threat, you know, something that you need to fight against, something that appear to have almost like a supernatural power over your perception and your capacity to function and move in the dream state, in the reality. So every time you kind of challenge the limitations of the dream world and attempt to expand your capacities, the agents appear and attempt to destroy you or control you or police you, basically. And initially, the only way to relate to them is by running away from them or learning to fight them. But it's still a very dualistic experience, right? So these programs that the ego is created from, they appear as an enemy, you know, something that needs to be destroyed, or something that we need to find a way to control, basically, as something other than awakening, right? Something like that. So the first breakthrough in the awakening process is symbolized how in the end of the first Matrix movie, so Neo, he stops fighting, right? And he directly enters the agent, Smith. So he enters the program and kind of like assimilates it at its core, and it transmutes into pure energy. So that's like the first genuine breakthrough in the awakening process that is only possible after a shift at the identity level has occurred, that we are able to turn towards these type of habitual patterns and conditioned rigid reactions or behavioral patterns in our experience from this place of open, pure, unguarded awareness. And we see that the program, the habit, is actually nothing other than unconditioned reality. And that's why it doesn't need to be fought. So in this way, it can be assimilated and transmuted at its core, right? So it results in natural release or self-release when this happens in our direct experience. So this is the functioning of liberation that arises from the insight, the clear seeing of awakening, where we see like reality, the mind reality for what it is. We're no longer deceived by the images. We know where we are. We know what we are working with. We're still, of course, you would say under the law of cause and effect. So when these programs activate in our experience or in the experience of others, so these agents, they still appear to have power over us because there are still these subtle dualistic conceptions operating that make it appear that there is self and other, and make it appear as this unconditioned space, this unborn, uncreated awareness is fundamentally something that needs to be defended, right? That's something that can be harmed or destroyed by this type of functionings of illusion. But anyway, so that's the first breakthrough. And then in the second movie, I'm actually not so familiar with that second movie, but what I recall from it, that there is this multiplication of the agent Smith. So he kind of starts to clone himself. So there's suddenly an army of agents and this apparently futile war that Neo and the other main characters are engaged with, and the revelation that this whole prophecy of the one, it had been part of the programming to begin with. So I think in some sense that could be made to represent how even after a genuine awakening breakthrough, these type of spiritual ideologies or ideas can hijack our reality so that we start to believe in some sort of subtle forms of conceptualization, such as, that there is this deeper meaning to this whole process, that there is someone like the one that has a mission and things like that. It's just in the movie it appears like that, but it could appear also in our life in a certain way, that these type of spiritual frameworks are hijacking the genuine insight, and we start to believe in them, and we enter in some sort of like futile war against anything that appears other than awakening. And the more we fight these agents, the more they just multiply and multiply and multiply. Like no matter how many victories we have in this process of engaging with these habits and programs and conditioning in our experience, it just seems like we're just pulled deeper and deeper and deeper into this endless processing that doesn't seem to have any end. And that's, of course, because there's still this subtle dualistic perception operating there, that we believe that there is some sort of end result, some sort of state of perfection, and that this type of mind constructs, again, there's something fundamentally other, something that needs to be fixed or get rid of to achieve some sort of enlightened state. So that's never going to happen. That's the progressive path, basically, if that's what we believe in. And the progressive path can only lead to the disillusionment with that whole fundamental view, and a kind of collapse of the path into no path, no process, into realizing that all of that was fabrication, that there ever was someone who could be engaged with the path and getting somewhere. Like there only is this immediate responsiveness in the moment, this functioning of the ground, this engagement with confusion, with illusion, this discovery of direct reality beyond conceptualization, fresh, completely fresh, prior to any kind of experience that we have had prior to this moment. So there is no goal other than this. There is no path other than this. There is no fruition other than this. It's the time completely collapses when this is thoroughly realized, the implications of no path. So we kind of really digest the clear seeing that this is timeless. This is timeless and complete. And in the Matrix movies, this is symbolized by the end of the third movie, right? So that's kind of like the ultimate gesture that he makes in the end. So it's a gesture of self-sacrifice that Neo is kind of guided into undergo, basically, like in this story of the movie. So he completely realizes that fighting is futile, like fighting is dualistic. So he allows the so-called enemy, the ancient Smith, to enter into him and assimilate him completely. But something interesting happens here, when this program tries to override emptiness, when it tries to override the unconditioned mind, like it kind of causes the whole virtual reality to overload and collapse, like the whole matrix just kind of like explodes into pure light, into clear light. So it is a pretty fun metaphor again in relation to the awakening process, because that's finally this genuine non-dual, not just insight, but this radical act of self-offering and surrender, and radical transmutation that takes place as a result. So in a way, it's kind of similar to the practice of Chöd, right? So instead of fighting our demons, and the demons would, in this context, be the programs, the deeply ingrained habits and reactions, right, of the virtual reality. So instead of fighting our demons, we offer our body as a feast offering. And when that happens, we realize that this body of emptiness, it cannot be fed on. Like it cannot be harmed, it cannot be overridden by any kind of program or attempt to take control or dominance over this. So it's only as long as there is a sense of inherent existence to our experience, like our body-mind experience, our psychology, so that that illusion of inherent existence is exactly what is deconstructed with this act of offering, that body that is created by the functioning of the aggregates as an offering, because we realize that it's all empty. This is emptiness to begin with. And that emptiness is like the true resolution beyond resolution, because it shows us that this whole dualistic setup, it was a kind of journey that appeared to have reality to it, like the awakening journey, like the heroic journey, this whole warriorship. Like it had its own reality to it until this point is reached, when you see that it's non-dual, truly non-dual. The mind, the nature of the mind, when it is truly realized that there is no subject and there is no object, like thoroughly, like the implications of that realizations are thoroughly digested and applied moment by moment when we encounter our experience and we encounter these deeply ingrained habits. Like then like in Chöd, it said that in that moment the angels and demons vanish. Like there is nothing anymore to cut through when the non-duality of the mind is realized. So the whole kind of paradigm of the dualistic drama It's kind of seen to be like a mirage, like a fantastic mirage inhabited by fantasy beings, like a fantasy land. Like it never had any reality to it, none of it. There never was a journey. There never was anyone there, you know, inhabiting that character who underwent the awakening process. There never was liberation as some sort of goal or state or condition to be achieved. There never was bondage. There is only this spontaneous immediacy, this spontaneous presence, this timeless creative flux that manifests as unenlightened images or enlightened images. But it's all this ground experience in itself, and they're all just images. So in that sense, it is like a mirage. It appears so real, like fantastically real, like hyper vivid and brilliant and dynamic and expressive. That's kind of when you just laugh about the whole thing. Like, wow, that was so brilliant. That was brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Like, it's like a joke. So, yeah, if you feel on this process that appears like endless, 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 you are again and again and again encountering the same childhood trauma, the same pattern, whatever it is. And it seems like this is going nowhere. And every time where there seems to be a victory and, a successful moment of transmutation and self-release and liberation and clarity and bliss, and then it again reappears. So it like keeps moving in circles like this type of process of refinement and deepening of liberation, like in our particular body-mind experience, in our unique configuration. So if it appears like, wow, this is endless, yes, it's endless as long as you believe in a process, as long as you believe in time, as long as there is a sense of a comparison of this experience right now, whatever it is, to some imaginary other type of experience, to some imaginary other version of reality. You see what I mean? Like this subtle measurement, this subtle comparison is very much at the core of the idea of getting somewhere, of believing that this experience right now somehow is not complete. Or if it feels like complete, it feels like, oh, it needs to be stabilized into some sort of permanent state of ease. And no, that's never going to happen. Like this stabilization is just another myth that can be easily hijacked by the identity. Meaning that every time there are these moments of ease and flow and it's just so clear, tangibly clear, this untouched, immaculate nature of the mind, oh, then the identity kind of kicks in, or the remnant of the tendency to fixate kicks in, and it says, now we need to stabilize this, so it's always going to be like this. So no, this is constantly fluxing. This is constantly dynamically altering and shifting kaleidoscopically. Is constantly turning from inside out and from outside in, from upside down. It's not going anywhere, but it's constantly unfolding. That's the unconditioned mind experiencing itself. It's groundless like that. There's no destination and there's no arrival and there's no path. And yet we are totally effortlessly, naturally, with great ease and carefree joy, fully present, but we are not there. There's no one there. There is just this presence. There is just this spontaneity. that is utterly ungraspable, utterly undefinable, that cannot be fixed. And when you see that there is no need to fix it, because any attempt to fix it would be an attempt to understand it, to limit it to be in a particular way. So there's no need for that. Yeah, that's when the most subtle aspect of self-consciousness just vanishes, and there's nothing anymore tracking the experience or looking at it or trying to understand it, trying to map it, trying to like see like what's happening now. So when that form of self-consciousness evaporates, reality is just happening, it's just functioning, but there's no one there monitoring it. And you see that that's how it's always been. That is this radical freedom, that there's nothing monitoring this. Like the idea of control is absolute illusion, a fantastic illusion to begin with. And matrix is, of course, a symbol for control. So that's the true sky matrix of the liberated reality, of this primordial space where literally everything, every thought, every pattern that previously appeared like a problem is another portal to discover the nature of the mind.